Wake up in the morning, I don't got no worries, cause it's a beautiful day. So many wonder how long we will be here, tell 'em that we're here to stay. Hey yo, let's get it. Boss Talk, straight from the city with true heart. We got champs in the making and champs that are root more. Got that all sport, optimal prime, ready to dominate. The hottest conversations, uncensored, this the time and place. Boss Talks, keep it uncensored, it's all hard. You could be for more walks, come tune in to Boss Talks. Got that all sport, optimal prime, ready to dominate. Hottest conversations, uncensored, this the time and place. Boss Talk.
Boss Talk.
Man, I know, right? Let's go.
That's a jam, bro.
What's good? What's good? Man, I tell you what. Well, listen. Welcome back, everyone. Man, it's been a couple weeks. We took a little bit of time off. We aired some older episodes. Kind of took a week off, and now we're back live. Man, I tell you what. And due to the beauty of technology, man, we're coming to you from. I'm in LA. Jeff, where you at?
Puerto Rico. Okay, all right. I'm in Monroe.
Let's go. And our guest today is coming to us all the way from the UP. And we'll get to that in a minute. But how about we do this? Let's get our sponsors out of the way. And then after that, we'll jump into talking to our guest today. So, Jeff, why don't you kick us off, brother?
Absolutely. So, shout out Monroe Nutrition, 739 South Monroe Street. If you want your healthy fixin', we say fast food for healthy people. Also, we're giving wellness evaluations for anybody who would like to get better in their daily nutrition and daily, everyday healthy living. Stop on in and see us and we'll take care of you. What you got for us, Tino?
Well, I thought you were going to jump in with Triple D liquidations, man.
Okay, yeah. Hey, Triple D liquidations, BSB. Hey, BSB. Be somebody's blessing. The new clothing line. You're going to see a lot more of us as well.
There you go. And of course, we've got Amaya's Fresh Mexican Grill, 29 South Monroe Street. Man, we're right in the heart of downtown Monroe, the crown jewel of downtown Monroe. We make it fresh daily. We don't. You already know. My mama will slap me.
Right.
Let's see.
Your mama don't play that.
She doesn't play, man. Listen, she's 4'9". She doesn't mess around.
Yeah.
And then of course,
ones.
Stay away from the Mexican women, Jeff. I'm telling you, man. Don't do it. Don't do it. And then of course we have Tino Amaya, State Farm Insurance Agency, celebrating 20 years. Owning and operating State Farm Insurance Agency right on the south side of Monroe. Man, I'll tell you what, we're South County Monroe, and I'll tell you, man, it's been a great 20-year career for me at State Farm.
I didn't know that about you, Tina. I had no idea.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's been fun, 20 years, man. And I'll tell you, it's funny. When I first started that business, I thought I'd never be that old guy that complains about the new young guys coming up or complains about the technology changes.
That boy
and things
complains
like that.
about me all the time.
Man, I complain all the time. Are you kidding? And then, of course, we've got Amaya Group Inc. We do small restaurant renovations, small cafe renovations. We do menu engineering. If you've got a small project out there, we try to keep it, 25 employees or less. We try to keep it pretty small. Boutique shops, but if you're looking to renovate your space, looking to re-engineer your menu, give us a call. And then I do want to mention May is Mental Health Awareness Month, okay? And this is something that a lot of guys struggle with. And when I say guys, I mean men in particular. I think men struggle most with it because we're not exactly sure who to call, when to call, how to call. So if you're out there, you're struggling with mental health issues, any mental health awareness issues, man, we definitely are open. I'm going to say there are lots of resources out there. I also want to showcase, I'm always wearing this bracelet right here from the Valhalla Project, and 22 veterans a day struggle with PTSD, take their lives on average every single day. And so I'm going to say if there's a veteran out there that These guys here are trying to find ways to get them help a lot sooner rather than going through a lot of the red tape and a lot of the chains that they have to go through in order just to get mental health. So, guys, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. Don't be ashamed of needing to reach out and call somebody, all right? That's all I got. That's all I got, man. So today's guest, whoo, man.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun. Listen, man, I was super excited when I reached out. Now, I met Zach probably, was it pre-COVID, Zach?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was pre-COVID.
Like, you know, he was in the restaurant. We got around to talking. And then, like, I think right after COVID, came back around and McGady's had closed down. And I know at one point you were kind of looking, kind of kicking the tire over there, not sure if you wanted to do something. But we got around to talking. And so when we were thinking about a guest lineup, I said, man, we got to get this guy on the show. He's young, started his career at a young age. I'm not going to give away all your secrets here. I'm going to let you do that. But I've always been impressed with, you know, again, like Jeff, a young entrepreneur. I've always been impressed with these young guys that are not afraid to take chances.
Stud,
hungry,
humble.
I'm proud of
good
Jeff.
looking.
Jeff, we grew up in the same park, right?
Yeah.
So me and Jeff go back. I know I was pretty close with Drew, who I met you through, and we grew up in the same trailer park there in Monroe. So
dude,
that's
for
awesome.
People who don't know, Drew is my older brother. Yep.
Yeah. So Zach, I mean, kick us off, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your business enterprises, and then, you know, just kind of let everybody know like what you got going on right now.
I'm Zach. I mean, I don't know how much you want me to get into right now, or do you want to go on the questions? But I've been doing business I started my first company when I was 18, officially working for myself when I was 18. I started it. I actually was downtown Monroe on 14 West 1st Street. I opened a little tech store called Tech Life. It only lasted about a year because I realized I didn't need a space to do the kind of tech stuff I wanted to do. It was more like going to businesses and stuff. But that was where it all started at 18. It was a little store in Monroe, and did IT for a long time. I still have the IT company, so I still do IT. Had a marketing company for a while in Ann Arbor after I did an app for Ann Arbor called A2 Social, and I was onboarding. It was like you could go find like happy hour nightlifes, and it was a social network to like kind of, you know, get people talking about businesses and get businesses interactive with people. So from that stemmed a marketing company. Once we realized I had all these, you know, restaurants and bars that were like, hey, I need help. Can you help us do other things since you're doing this? So I launched a marketing company called Bright Lights, and that lived about 5 years or so. That was a lot of work to keep going. So I ended up kind of shutting the doors because I had more things going on. About a pedicab company through that. We were doing promotion for the app and restaurants and stuff like that. I no longer own that one. Again, it was a wonderful guy that owned it when I bought in. I gave it back to him, and we separated the business. We still stay in touch. And then I, out of that, after helping all these restaurants and bars, started buying my own restaurants and bars. So now I own a couple in the UP where I'm at right now. And one opening in Ann Arbor. And
No, so what are you opening in Ann Arbor?
It's the old Moe's Sports Shop on North University.
Oh, yeah.
It was there for 108 years. And it was where the referee stripes were invented, in that building.
Wow.
Like where they just straight up came from. The referees used to just wear white button-ups. And
they
were getting confused for some players because there was like white uniforms. And so they went to George Moe there, that was a clothier, you know, for the collegiate. And he was one of the big guys at the time. And they asked him to come up with a unique design. So we're paying a lot of homage to that. I'm recalling the bar Moe's, paying a ton of homage to that history, and doing a big thing. It's going to be a really good spot. I've been working on it for like 2.5 years now or more. It's been coming, you know, COVID and all this, but it's on its way, and it's looking good.
So let me jump in and ask you this. You know, going from tech to restaurants.
Yeah.
What are some challenges you faced? I mean, so do you have a restaurant background, or was it just? So what are some challenges you faced, man? I mean, kind of making that transition.
So much restaurant background. I worked as a waiter for 2 days.
I love it.
That's impressive.
I actually did, though. I worked in Dolce Vita in Monroe when I was young for 2 days. My friend's girlfriend got me hired there, and I worked there for 2 days, and I was like, the first customer that like got snippy with me, I was like, this isn't for me. I'm gonna hit somebody.
Oh my gosh,
I'm gonna do this place a favor, and
that is funny.
Yeah, no restaurant background. I worked at Cafe Classics, actually, where your business is now.
Okay.
But I worked there for a bit, but I mean, no real restaurant background. But I've always kind of been that type. I've always been that host. I've always liked to entertain. I've always liked to create spaces that people enjoy. It's just ever since I was a kid. So it really was a natural fit to go in and just kind of dream these places up and do it. I'm probably not the most qualified to work them day to day. I go in, I'm a good cook, so I can go in and help things with the menu and help do recipe testing and stuff like that. But when it comes to front of the house, I really rely heavily on my staff, and I'm good at, I have some really good people that have taken that part over. It's just, all the foreign things I was able to make.
So let me ask you this. What's your philosophy then on hiring? Because you hear that a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to surround yourself with a team. I don't know if you're like do you read a lot of books? I mean, are you a podcast guy?
I don't have the attention span to read a book, to be honest. Podcasts I'll watch every once in a while.
Okay. So that's kind of like Jeff. Jeff, you're not a big reader either. We've had this conversation before. Jeff, you're more of a podcast guy.
Yeah, 100%. And real quick, I just transitioned, so can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're fine.
Really good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm a real big I love YouTube.
Yep.
I love watching certain videos on YouTube, and I love, Eric Thomas, some of those motivational speakers, but there's actually this app called Headway, which will break down a book in like 15 minutes. So it's like perfect for my attention span. It just boom, boom, boom.
100%. Yep. I totally feel you there, man. I sit down and start reading, and then all of a sudden I realize I'm reading words, and I'm like, I have no idea what I just read. So
yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
So, me personally, I mean, I love to read. I love to kind of, get into things. I love to sit. I read almost every single day. I'm reading a book. But so with that, you don't have a lot of restaurant experience. You transition from IT to restaurants.
Yep.
What's your philosophy as far as going around and actually finding those people that you place, as Jim Collins says, putting the right people in the right places on the bus around you?
I think that's something that it's hard to say it like this. You either kind of have that gauge or you don't, and I think it can kind of be learned, but you kind of have to be good at reading people just kind of naturally. And I think that is luckily one of the things I've always been best at. And I think a lot of my success to that. I think I've always been really good at people, working with people, and that's with all my clients. I've never lost a client in my life. It's just, wow. I can become extremely close with all my clients. I'm really good at working with people. So when I'm hiring people, I meet people out in the wild, and I can kind of do a read on them and I can just from the start I know all their strengths and all this. I can tell really quickly. And I think it's not something that everyone has naturally. You can certainly train yourself a little bit to be more aware. But I mean, if you have it naturally, I think that's a huge benefit, and I think I just had that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think you do too. I've talked to you, and I think you get a pretty good quick reading on people, and yeah.
You know what, you're right. I think for me, it really is, as you start to sit down and I can have a 2-minute conversation with someone and know right away whether or not they're going to fit with the team. You know 100%. What I mean? And then, even not even so much having a conversation, but just the energy that they bring, they kind of, give off. You can almost tell like, oh man.
I can't hire someone, and this is probably really bad, but it's hard for me to hire someone if I don't feel like I could be close with them or be friends with them or communicate properly. Because that's I know everyone has their strengths, but I feel like we have to have some sort of a good relationship. Otherwise, what are we doing? Actually, currently, as I film this right now in my house downstairs, I have the newest restaurant that I bought up here. I have the manager that I hired up there. Her husband, daughter, and son are all downstairs eating dinner in my house. I become really close with my staff, and I think that's good. I know people say business and personal separate, yada yada. I just don't feel that way. I really just don't. It might be a weakness in the end, but if it's a weakness, it's the weakness I want to have.
Right. No, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I have a question. Do you have like with your business, do you have a lot of, because I've heard this quote, and I think it was Jim Rohn who said it. He said, there's penny in the sales and fortune in the follow-up.
Oh, 100%.
And
Yeah.
do you have a lot of return business, and how does that look, if so, like with your follow-up with them?
So in the IT world, yes. I mean, that's been my thing. My first couple clients paved the way they got me my next 5. And then, so it's really stemmed out in that long term. Yeah, anyone can sell a one account or just go in and say big words and sell something, but it's really creating, again, that relationship that every one of my clients could personally call me at any time and talk to me about other things. You know what I'm saying? And they wouldn't be weird. I'm pretty close with almost everyone that is even a client. So I think that is absolutely the strength, is people want to bring you new business when they like you and when you have a relationship with them. If you're just cut and dry, sell you this, barely delivering, or even if the product's fine, but you're just not really involved, you fall off the map. No one's excited to go get you a new customer or whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, that's just an adage that's old as time, right? I mean, people love doing business with people that they know, trust, respect. I mean, those things, right? Somebody that's ingrained in the community. And I think that's one of the strengths that's really helped, Jeff, even my own business, we're so ingrained in our community, in Monroe that people just love doing business with us, because they realize they recognize not only are they helping me and my family, but you're helping the 47 other employees that we employ that are all local, to the community, right? So talk to me a little bit about how you tie yourself to these communities, because you're not from St. Ignace, and that's where you're at now. You're not from Ann Arbor, but how do you tie yourself to a community like Ann Arbor that's such a big, wide open ocean?
You know what's funny? So Ann Arbor specifically, it was kind of just one step at a time, one person at a time. And just to clear it up, right? So I know you guys feel the same way, I'm sure, but just to say it out loud, that's not why we create these relationships. We're not thinking money,
right.
money.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
I feel like it needs to be said sometimes out loud. Is genuinely, I enjoy the things I do, and it just happens to be cool that it happens to have a business and we can all support each other. But so in Ann Arbor, is one person at a time. It was a lot of going out, meeting new people, talking to local bartenders, and just getting to know everyone. And then when I was doing that app, when I put on that app, and I met a lot of people that way, and I put myself in associations, right? Like Main Street Association, State Street, all these things, just get in and just try and make friends and give my best input I can and try and help anywhere that I can. I think it's just be excited and be genuinely excited and be excited to meet people, be excited to do things, not excited about the dollar. When you're,
right.
You're excited about, and your whole end game is how many dollars is this going to make me? You're going to fuck up a lot.
Right. No, absolutely, man. And you know what? That's one thing that I preach to a lot of, I just had this conversation with this phenomenally talented chef friend of mine. And, she's been really exploding and coming up on the scene. And she had this big dinner this past weekend that she was going to do. And she said, but I don't feel like I'm going to make enough money for the time and da-da-da. And I said, you know what? Sometimes it's about the community. 100%. It's about what you're doing for that community. And so she calls me this morning. She goes, oh my gosh, I just got a meal plan person. I just got somebody that wants to do a cooking class. I just got somebody. And I said, and that's where it comes from, right? Because you were genuine, you put it out there, and now you're reaping the rewards of what you put out there. Yes. And so let me ask you this though. So as you're starting to grow your business, as you're making your transitions, you're, moving from the IT world to the restaurant world, hospitality world, what's your overall philosophy on employees? How do you manage and train the employees now that you're taking on?
So one of my best things in my companies is I always start with finding a really good manager. So I always focus my most time finding that person that I really believe is going to manage the best. And then I kind of let them do a lot. I really get a lot more. I give them a lot of control. I
wow.
have them talk to me about some things, but in the hiring process, I give them a lot of freedom, and I trust them to find the right people and judge it. And I think it's one of those things where if I go in and I'm like, hey, that may have not been a good fit, then we'll talk about it. But I allow that first step, and I don't micro want to be a part of everything at first. But the thing I want to be a part of the most is hiring that first person or two, that are the management team, and I become really, really close with them, and they got to be the best ones. And then, you know, they really help me hire these people because, like, let's face it, especially with my lack of experience in the field, they know what we're looking for more than I do. You know, I mean, it's just
right.
And as much as I like to be the creative part, and I love to host, and I love to entertain and do all this stuff and great good food, when we're talking day-to-day stuff, they know better. And it's been pretty great for me. I've really had a lot of success this way. I've never had any problems with any of the hiring processes. Never had someone who caused a huge scene and, you know, like made a real big problem outside of little things. And I think it's really, as a business owner, a lot of business owners don't put a lot of trust into people because they're very paranoid and they really want to be overly, you know, over the top and micromanaging everything. And I think the best advice would be like, really try and let your trust in and your ego go and your pride kind of go a little bit. You know what, that's so refreshing to hear, because you're right. I think oftentimes we do see a lot of owners, I call them white knuckle drivers. Yeah, that's a good
You know
one.
what I mean? They're just, man, they're holding onto the wheel so tight because they don't want to let, you know, what's my money or it's my this or it's my that, you know? And then all of a sudden, you know, they're driving the bus off the cliff, you know, because you're not going to have people that will follow you when you ride that tight, you know, when you're driving that hard. Wow, that's crazy, man. That's so, and you know, let me tell you what else is refreshing. And this is where I think, you know, and it's fun because you and Jeff are so much a lot alike. Yeah. It's fun to hear you actually admit what your weaknesses are up front.
Oh, I love it. I mean, that's the biggest part. You got to acknowledge your weaknesses. If you don't, you're going to drive that bus off the cliff real quick.
Yeah. Because, you know, go ahead, Jeff.
No business doing. And you're going to be like, whoops.
Bro, yeah, you're 100% right, man. Like, that's what, and real quick, can you guys still hear me good?
Mm-hmm.
You're good.
Okay, cool. I feel like I've seen, you know, just from the short time that I've been open at the shop, I've seen so many people that, you know, oh, we're going out, we're going to make, you know, $1 million, we're going to be great, all this stuff, but they won't acknowledge their weaknesses. And that's why they end up shutting down. That's why they don't end up being, because it's not so much about our strengths. Like you said, it's about the weaknesses.
Yeah.
And transition just a little bit, you know, like you said, we grew up in the same trailer park.
We did, man. Yeah.
Man, and not a lot of people make it out.
No.
At all.
Absolutely not.
So talk to me a little bit about what was it like growing up? Like, what was driving you through the years? Like, when did you know, like, this is what I want to do? And what fueled you as a kid? Because I know mine came as a kid.
Yep.
But like as a kid, what kind of fueled you to like go this far?
That's a good question, man. And I think about it often, actually. I think about when that really started. And it's weirdly like, I always just kind of knew, you know, ever since I was really young, I didn't know what by any means. I didn't know an industry or any specifics, but I always just knew that I would be okay and I'd figure it out because I just really trusted myself to make the right moves and the right decisions. And, you know, growing up poor was actually really cool, I think. I think it gave an advantage because that's why I'm not super, super money driven and like freaked out about like, how many dollars is this going to make me? And like you said about your friends that were like, you know, we're going to go out and make $1 million. I think that saying that before you start a business that's just setting yourself up for failure. Saying, oh, I'm gonna go make this much money from this. Like, that's not a reason to be in business. And like, I get it that business is money in the end, but it's not the reason to go into business because like there's so many things before the money comes, and you have to be on top of all of them. If you're focused on the back thing, but yeah, I mean, coming from there was, you know, enlightening, I guess. It was rough at the time, but you know, it was good. We all did our thing. We all hung out. We were fine. I mean, you know, like it was rough living situation, but we all had fun and hung out together and did everything. But really, when I knew, I think the most was when I really struggled in school. I was an F student since you were allowed to fail. You know, like I went through elementary because like they had to, right? There was no failing in elementary school. But literally, since I started school, I just never could like absorb and listen and participate. And I don't know what it was. It wasn't I was being defiant. It just didn't click with my brain at all. And
that's so surprising to me because in my head, I'm like, oh, he must have been super smart, you
No,
know, in
God,
school.
no.
Same.
Yeah,
Same.
no, it was,
Wow.
yeah, no, it was rough. So I officially dropped out when I was legally allowed to in 9th grade, because before my
Wow.
mom kept getting calls from the truancy officer, like, we're gonna take you to jail, and she's like, gosh damn it, Zach, go to school. But yeah, I mean,
Wow.
I missed way more than half the year in school. That was way more. Like, any days that I felt I could get away with, I missed. When I was there, I did nothing. And again, I was a good kid. I wasn't like a brat or like attitude. I was very politely like, no, thank you. I don't want to participate. And so my brain worked different, but I just had this comfort the whole time that was just, this isn't my thing, but I'm going to do things. Like, I just knew it. And I don't really know why. Maybe it was a little bit of being naive, but
Yeah.
it carried me through it. And all of my teachers and classmates hearing the teachers say these things and stuff were not very supportive. Obviously, they would be like, Zach, you're they already seen I was poor and stuff. They'd be like, you're going to end up homeless, or, you're not going to get a job ever. And what are you going to do? What are your plans? And I would always just be like, I'll be all right. Like, I just knew I would. And they'd be like, that's not how the world works.
And look how the world worked out for you, right?
You said maybe not your world, but my world.
I don't believe that there can be one system that fits all. That just doesn't make any sense.
I agree 100% there.
Like, how the hell can we create one system that? So it would just, I don't know. Yeah. So I think it's a good thing to note. For a lot of people that are out there that are feeling dumb. They're like, I can't do school and I feel dumb because everyone else tells me I'm dumb. I mean, I was told I was dumb a lot, like, you're gonna be homeless, you're stupid, why aren't you doing this? And I think it's just important to look at a lot of the people who have done things despite school and really just look into yourself. And if it's not working for you, you just have to figure out what is and what can, and I think as long as you're real with yourself on all the levels, weaknesses and strengths, it's okay to say when you're good at something too. That's a hard thing people have a hard time admitting too. Just as much as we say, I'm good at this, I have this strength, is also, people feel weird about doing that and feeling it.
Wow. All right. So I'm gonna peel back half a layer there. So Jeff just asked, okay, coming out of the trailer park, kind of what was your motivation to become an entrepreneur? I'm gonna peel that back one step further and say, and this is usually Jeff's question, so what is your why today? Like, as you sit there today in this moment, everything that you've come through and all the things that you're doing now, and we're going to get into some of the things that you're working on now. Yeah. What is your why today?
So that's also a good question, and something I think about often. It's it's funny because whenever I think about what I'm doing and the industries and stuff, I always wonder, like, when's this going to shift? What am I going to do next? And why am I doing it? Is it money? Is it this? And am I enjoying everything that I'm doing still? Which is why I got into restaurants and bars. As much as I, do IT and like my clients and stuff, IT isn't exactly my passion. So I knew I had to do something that was really, I was passionate about again. But despite the personal just reasons of, doing something that I enjoy, honestly, other people, like, I really, really, more than anything in the business, I enjoy working with other people. And I enjoy watching the people that I kind of work with. I don't even want to say work for me, but I work with, changing their direction, changing their mindset, getting into things that just makes them happy. Maybe no one else ever gave them a chance, or, put them in this direction. It's really, really cool to see them do things. And, that's totally my why. Like, if it wasn't for that, I think I would, there's so many other ways I can go make money. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right. Yeah.
Probably I could go make money.
I was going to say, listen, man, you're talking to a guy that's been in the restaurant game for 35 years. There are much easier ways to make money out there.
And I'm like, I have a background. I can make, I can make apps. I can make all this stuff. I can make money in much easier ways. But I really enjoyed the very strong personal parts that come from the hospitality industry. And so my why really is a little bit for myself, wanting that passion. But I'm passionate about not only in the industry I'm in now, but the people. So for myself, it's that, and then I do it for the other people too. It's, that's totally my thing.
So what would you consider your leadership style to be?
Very, I don't know that I think very guided, but gently guided. I think I'm not someone who, pushes people into situations. And I think, you're going to be good at this. You go there now. And they're like, I don't want to. And I'm like, no, you're going to be great. And, push them. But I will guide and try to gently, go over the reasons I think they're going to be good there, or, and see where they're feeling, or, if they want to make a change, I allow that change. But like I said, I give a lot of freedom. I give a lot of trust, and I give a lot of, just the freedom to explore their own strengths and weaknesses. And even when I see things going wrong, I'm usually not very critical, and sometimes I'll let it go for a little bit. It's not, it's not detrimental. I just kind of back off and let it go. So yeah, I think gently guided, but in a way that is still strong. I think it's a strength. I think gently guided is a strength, as passive.
Well, it's like leading. It's like leading with love, leading with empathy. You know what I mean? Leading with like a mentorship mentality. Again, that's what it sounds like to me. Is you're kind of you're evaluating the employees for who they are as people.
Yeah.
And you're finding the ways that you might be able to help them kind of find their path, their own personal path.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty special, man. You don't see that very often especially in our industry, in the restaurant industry. I've got a saying, it's my job to train them to move up and on. That's my job as a chef. It's so that, and I get it, man. I've had some phenomenal, talented guys come through my kitchen, come through my restaurant. And for me, the blessing is, okay, yesterday I got a phone call from one of my former sous chefs who now is a head chef at a country club, called me up and he's like, hey man, you got like 10 minutes. I want to go over this menu. I want to see if I'm going in the right direction. I want to make sure these flavors sound right. And, we sat on the phone for an hour just talking about food. This morning, one of my other executive sous chefs called me up, and he's a head chef now somewhere else, big company, calls me up and he's like, hey man, so I've been sampling these dishes. I just don't know if I'm going in the right direction. What do you think about this? To me, that's the blessing, is when you've trained them to move up and on, but yet they still reach back.
Yes.
And, and reach out to you for advice, advice on their family, advice on balancing their lives. And so that's where I'm going to go next. Yeah, 100%. And that's where I'm going to go next with you. What's your idea of work-life balance? Because you have a lot of irons in the fire.
I do.
And, and I know you have a family. Mm-hmm. So what's your idea of work-life balance? What does that look like for a young up-and-coming entrepreneur?
It's tough. That's one of the hardest parts. I think, especially at first, it was a hard thing to grasp because you kind of want to go full on. You want to go, pedal to the metal, and you're loving what you do. You're having fun, growing. You want to stop and focus on the things that are most important, obviously, but you're also really stressed out all the time and trying to make sure that you're doing 100% of what you can on the other end. So it's an extremely hard thing to find. I think I'm just recently finding that work-life balance, and in the terms of, admitting that if I've taken on too much, and really acknowledging it, even if I know I can technically do it, should I is the better question. Should I take this on? Should I do this? Not can I? Yeah, I can, but so that's taken me a long time to really grasp. And I think you got to put everything in priorities in your head, right? I think if you have a family and you have, kids and stuff, those always should come first. If not, there's a problem there with the priorities. And
right.
I can't even say it's 50-50 because it's 50-50 still isn't really right. I think you need to prioritize those. But if you feel like you're putting too much in, I think it's okay to step back and think, I should wind this down now. And there's always time. If you have to wind something down for now, there's always time, unless you're like 95 dying in like a year or something, you know what I'm saying? But
right. Yeah. You've been given that mark. You already know when your time is coming.
You're like, okay,
exactly.
Well, I better do this. I got a year. So
yeah.
Theoretically always time. We don't know when, but there's always, I can do this for now. And this is something I want to project for later instead of, I want to do this now. Boom, 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 So
let's talk about the businesses that you have right now. So right now you just acquired Moe's that you're going to be reopening in Ann Arbor.
Yep.
You've got the hotel restaurant in St. Ignace.
The Whitetail. Yep.
And then you also have another restaurant, I believe, up in the UP, don't you?
Yep, in St. Ignace too, the Galley. So actually, Whitetail is in Brevoort technically, and then the St. Ignace by the Mackinac Island ferries is called the Galley. It's like a little lakeside steakhouse.
Wow. Okay. So how are you able to balance your time between the three spots now?
It's been tricky as of lately, especially because the construction is going on at Moe's. There's construction going on at the Whitetail since I bought it, and then getting the galley ready to open for the crazy season, because the on season here is nuts. Absolutely crazy. So it's hard sometimes, but once they're all running smooth, my time is, that's kind of where that kind of trusting relationship came on. I really am not needed much. I go up, I make sure, everything's coming out well, like product wise. I make sure everyone's happy and working together and there's no like huge dilemmas, but I kind of only have to put out big fires. Everything else, I go there really just to say hi, and everyone's happy to see me and happy to show me this new thing they did, or, because they know I get
right
too, right? Like whenever someone comes up with something and they're like doing things good, they know that like they get praise for, all my employees get praise from me way more than they get like a slap on the wrist.
Right.
About telling people when they're doing good, and
that's so you become more of an administrator in that capacity, where you're kind of showing up, you're checking the numbers, you're maybe meeting with the staff, meeting with your team, meeting with the management team, and then moving on to the next location. So do you kind of split your time, like I'm one day here, I'm one day there, or like because St. Ignace and the galley up in the UP are pretty close in proximity, but then I guess your longest jaunt would be coming down to Ann Arbor.
Well, I live in Ann Arbor full time. Yeah. So
oh my word. Okay. Wow.
So I live in Ann Arbor full time. And then I drive up here to my house here probably once a week when it's hectic, on like Friday, Saturday usually, and then once every other week or every 3 weeks when things are more like I'm not super needed. I'm so used to the drive at this point. I just like sit in my car and then all of a sudden I'm at the bridge. It's like I've done it so many times that I don't even notice.
Yeah.
Like I drive up here just to like meet someone for coffee at this point. Like, I mean, it's just,
Wow, that's crazy. So talk to us a little bit about, okay, so if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm looking, I feel like it's that time. How did you know it was time to scale? When did you realize that?
I don't think you ever know. I don't think you ever know for sure. I don't think that's even a thing you can be like, oh, okay, I'm certain of this. I think really listening to yourself, what you want to take on, what you feel comfortable with, and how much you want to do it is really the thing. And again, not just because there's dollars, like if you're seeing something, you're like, oh, I should take that on.
Right.
Like just because like, I think I can make X dollars, and you already have a lot going on and it's not something you really care about. No, then the answer is no. Like,
right.
If you're passionate enough about that project and you realistically have the capability of taking it on, that's when it's quote unquote time to, allow yourself to, if you want, or feel like you should.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any like real telltale signs of like, this is the perfect time. Unless you're like, just dead set and like you have all these fingers on the heartbeat of an industry and a thing that you just know everything about, but that's almost never the case.
No, I can tell you, listen, man, I get phone calls from people all the time. I've been in the restaurant industry for 35 years.
Yeah.
And there are things I'm learning every day.
And that's how it should be. If you stop, then the business is boring to you at that point.
Listen, man, I tell everybody I'm Peter Pan. I just had somebody ask me the other day, they go, how can you be in the restaurant business this long? And I said, you know what? I'm Peter Pan. I'm the boy that never grew up. I never had to, because every 5 years I get a new crop of 18 to 22-year-olds that are either just starting their college, collegiate journey, some that are maybe they're going to graduate school, but they just need something in between. I said, every 5 years I get a whole new crop of kids, young adults that, man, they just keep me young. I listen to all the latest music, all the best music, so I'm surrounded by it, man. It's fun.
That's how it should be.
But it's interesting to hear you say, that you kind of know, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs get themselves in trouble too fast. Yeah. So how do you keep a handle on, again, you've got these 3 projects going, you're still in the IT world. How do you keep your finger on the pulse at all times?
And that's something I've been guilty of letting slide too, for sure. Like, taking on a little too much sometimes, and especially at once, or, it's one of those things where there's balance where like at times it's totally good. I can manage all of them, but I forget about those times where they're all crazy and I'm like, well, this is too much. Right. So you have those kind of ups and downs. I definitely, it's hard. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's tough. It's not like a walk in the park. That's where, you just continue to get better at adapting and figuring out, what you can pass off, what your real value is, to put yourself where you value the most, instead of trying to put yourself in every little, in every little spot. I think that's the most important thing. Figure out what your biggest values are, only do those, and let everyone else do the rest that you think other people could do better than you, because there are so many things that other people can do better than you. Everyone who's everyone.
So right now, all of our listeners have kind of like, if they could see like the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
There's always like that iceberg meme, right? And you see the tip of the iceberg, but you don't get to see what happens below the water, right? 100%. So right now, everyone's looking at Zach. They're listening to what we're saying, and they're like, man, this guy's super successful. Everything he's touched has turned to gold. So I want to like peel back another layer and say, all right, walk me through some of your failures. What's that been like? And what are some great lessons that you took away from maybe opening something, failing at it, and then regrouping?
I think, it's one of those things where you have to think, what is a failure to you, and really gauge that, because I think things that either didn't work out or weren't long-term, I think those are lessons,
Nice.
and they're all positives. Like everything you do, the first failure would have been Tech Life, right? It was only there for like a year. But it was a super good lesson on what I did want to do with it next. The store didn't last because it didn't make, it didn't really fit and make any sense in the end. I was doing like in-store computer repair, which is not going to pay the bills. You know what I'm saying? Like, I realized that I needed to go do business, go to on-sites and have people do that with me. So that was technically a failure, right? But it led me into the next thing. The marketing company that I say, I kind of shuttered the doors for the most part. I have a few clients that I still have just because they rely on me so much, but overall I've shut down most of that. That could be considered a failure because I shut business down. But I learned so much out of that in the world of, marketing and just client relations, and so much that it was a choice to do so. The app for Ann Arbor, I ended up shutting down because it was too much to manage. Again, learned a ton from that, led me into different avenues. So I think, failures are not really most of the time, they're not really failures, because you tried and you went out and did stuff, and then you learned. As long as you don't let one thing doesn't work and you're like, never mind, never again.
I'm done. I'm done. Throw in the towel.
That was a one trick pony. Then yeah. But I think if you don't do that and you're like, okay, that didn't work, here's what I learned from it, let me apply it next, or let it lead me to the next thing. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call many things, this might sound cocky, but I wouldn't call many things failure. Right. The things that didn't work out just were super good lessons and led me into more positive things. I can't think of a single thing that didn't work out that didn't lead me in to a more positive next step.
Right. But that comes back to mindset though, right? I mean, that comes back to making sure you have, in my opinion, I think that's the difference between the most successful guys, the most successful entrepreneurs that really make it and take it to a whole nother level. And one of those guys you could look at, the founders of Apple, right? At one point in time, I mean, think about it, man. Apple at the brink of probably closing to what it is today, right? And you could have easily said, wow, man, these guys they don't know what they're doing. They're going under. And then all of a sudden there was a change in mindset. They learned from their failures and they catapulted forward. I mean, and it sounds like that's kind of where you're at.
Yeah.
So as you look at like kind of where you're at today, what are some challenges that you're facing right now in this moment as you start to kind of embark on these couple different journeys you're on?
Right now in this moment is the time that I talked about, where it's like everything's good and you can manage everything, and then everything gets crazy at once and you're like, whoops. In this moment of time, I guess I have 2 places under construction, and I'm opening the galley on the 11th. So we have a lot of just, crazy parts. We're open for the season, and there's just a lot going on. I have my IT clients that still need me, right? Like physically need me in places, and still rely on me heavily. And so right now it's timing. Right now is hard to find all that time for myself to be in all these projects. And at some points, like these times where you're in construction and opening phases, you can't really pass the buck. all your managers and your staff are relying on you to give the answers. You're not like, I don't know, you figure it out, because this is the time where you have to make decisions. They wouldn't like that, right? Like that's not what they want to be doing.
Right.
So, right now it's really time. Right now it's time and energy, and just staying on the right track and making sure I'm doing the best I can with each one. Which is hard to find in yourself, right? Sometimes you just want to go to sleep. You just want to be like, I don't know, leave me alone for a minute. That's not really an option at points. I think anyone getting in business for themselves has to like really be aware of that like you have to put things before yourself often.
Wow. That's actually the next question I was going to ask you, man. So if you had any, like if I'm a new entrepreneur and I'm coming to Zach and I'm saying, talk to me about what it would take to be in your place, in your shoes. Talk to me about that. And what is that like?
Belief, I think too, man. Like, I think that's one of the biggest things is if you go and do things, it's not going to be an overnight thing. I mean, if it is, great for you, but that's not how it usually works. So if you don't really, really believe in yourself and what you're doing and your capability, you're going to fold the cards at some point. I think you've got to be really, it takes a lot of belief, a lot of determination, and a lot of learning. You have to be willing to learn, willing to, like we said, talk about strengths and weaknesses, but more than anything, belief. Like that's just, and I think that's where I always was. Like I said, at some points I thought maybe I was naive, but I always believed that like I was, even the things that like weren't really big, I was like, well, it's okay, I'm on the way to the big thing. It was just fully believed that I was. And maybe that's why something ended up happening. There really was no, like that can trump skills sometimes, like your belief can literally over trump your skills. You could actually not be that skilled at anything, but believing it, and you end up pushing so hard that you end up being that,
You know what? Go ahead, Jeff. I see you jumping in.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I feel like that's one of the biggest things we've heard throughout the time is like, as long as you believe in yourself, there could be 100 people who don't, but as long as you believe in you, you can do anything,
Yeah. No, absolutely. And, the other thing I was going to say there too is, sometimes you're right. I'll take a guy that, and this just happened in my kitchen last summer. I had a kid that was a super talented chef. I mean, super talented, man. This kid could cook anything. Yeah. And I had to make a choice between him and I'm going to call this other person more of just a rock steady, somebody that shows up every day, doesn't complain, puts the hours in, does everything exactly how he's asked to do it, and then ask questions about it, but not before, not before. Right. He does it 100% all the way through. And then he would say, hey, just out of curiosity, why do we do it like this? And then I would explain it to him and he'd go, oh, okay. The other kid, super talented, man, but everything we would try to, put in front of him, there was always well, you know what, but this, and it's like, man, you haven't even done it yet. Like do the job first and then come back and talk to me about it. But anyway, I had to make a choice, keep the super talented guy or keep the kid that I felt, maybe wasn't the most talented, but had the most heart, the most dedication, the most loyalty to the process, and that believed, first and foremost, believed in our process overall. Sure. And sometimes you got to make those choices, man. It's not an easy one. It's not an easy one.
It sounds like to me, the other guy that the more, one that wanted to change the process or whatever, question it, he should go into business for himself, right? Because he believed in himself more than you, right? Like,
right. Yes.
Yes. Like, no. I got a better idea. And
yeah.
Like when you're in business. So he probably should have done his things for himself, just like I couldn't be the waiter because I had a hard time listening to people and someone being like, hey, do this. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of hard-headedness sometimes in business is really, really good to believe in yourself more than what other people are telling you to do,
But you know what? I think that is a general theme that we hear from a lot of our entrepreneurs. There is, and again, you got a guy like Steve Jobs, right? And we just talked about Apple a second ago. A guy that has so much belief in himself and in his process and in what he's doing. You see like what came of it. Talking to you and talking to some of the other entrepreneurs we've talked to, that's kind of an underlying theme. Everybody had so much belief in themselves, regardless of whether anyone else believed in them. It was like, hey, I know I can do this. So let me ask you this. How do you breathe that type of belief and that type of ownership into employees that maybe now you are inheriting because you're buying these businesses and taking them over. How do you get them to buy into your philosophy?
I don't necessarily spend a lot of time trying to convince them. So
Okay.
I usually can tell pretty quick which ones are going to stay and which ones aren't. There's been several occasions where I can tell that they're not quite there yet, but they're going to be all right. Like I can, you know what I'm saying? I can work with them and we're going to get to a better place. But you have to be able to see that far down into someone. And again, I think it's really hard to train. You have to go past those layers. Even if someone at the moment has these issues that are, not seeming like it, you have to see what's beyond that. And is it possible to go into a better range? Some people it's not, right? If you don't personally, it doesn't mean they're bad people, but if you're not going to be able to work with them, we have opposite mindsets and all that, then it's a no-go. And even if we've inherited them, it's kind of like, we should probably split ways. I think you're going to do better somewhere else. I just don't,
Yeah.
But so I don't really spend a lot of time convincing, because I think I try to pick the ones that really already somewhat are on board, engaged, and, trust me, I guess. And sometimes it takes time, but I think really being able to filter that out is the thing, and not trying to, fit a square peg into a round hole,
Right. Wow. That's kind of interesting too, to hear you say that. Cause I've taken over spots and places, and sometimes it's the philosophy that trips people up. They were kind of brought up from a different, philosophy, or they came through a different system or a process. And then all of a sudden here you are coming in and it's like, another thing, another idea or another, concept type of thing. So when you go in, is there an evaluation process you use, or you just kind of sit down with everybody? And
I just start talking to everyone, right? It's very, very casual. I think you learn most from people when they're not in a sit down process. That's when you learn real about people. Some people are really good sweet talkers at sitting down and being like, all the words to say,
Yeah.
I just like to act. I'm really casual when I go into places, just as casual as I am all the time, and talk to them as friends. With no business involved, and learn a lot about them. And, we can really make kind of a judgment on that. Pretty good, other than having to like put these questions and this thing into place.
Yep. Yeah. It's kind of like Jeff and his belief that LeBron is better than MJ.
Mm-hmm.
He's a sweet talker.
I knew it. I just knew. I thought we might get an episode where this didn't happen, but
no, I'm just saying, like, Jeff is a sweet talker, about LeBron and, and what he believes, but the reality is MJ is the best. And, and so in me, I'm casual about it. I'm super casual.
Do you see LeBron in the playoffs right now?
That's just because Jordan's retired.
Jordan could never. Not at that age.
That's just because he's retired. All right. So this is something we do every episode. Sorry, Zach. I'm trying to convince, Jeff, that MJ is the GOAT, the one and only, next to Kobe. And then of course there's LeBron. All right. As we start to kind of wrap things up, man, do us a favor, walk us through a typical day. What is this is usually Jeff's question, but he's driving and he's kind of blinking out. So I'm going to ask it for him. Walk us through a typical day. What does a typical day look like for you from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed?
Oh man, I wish there was a thing as a typical day, but there's really not. But yeah, I mean, I guess in a nutshell, right? It's usually I wake up, I have my son, so he's homeschooled, so we do homeschool, and I try and kind of multitask a little bit while I'm schooling him, and do some little stuff on the side, respond to emails while he's doing his lesson plans and stuff. I move right into whatever is calling for by the day. I have like a to-do list, right? That changes constantly, but it usually goes something along the lines of, in the daytime, I focus on my IT stuff, how I can catch up on all that. And then in the nighttime, I focus on what needs to be done for the restaurants and bars and, things like that. Like when I'm literally like going to bed, like I'll literally sit on my computer for a while. And, whether it's like, I do all the graphic design and all like the marketing and stuff, because I have that, so I'll usually like catch up on like making menus or logos or ads or things like that, or answering questions and, getting recipes differed or whatever's needed to be done for those. So I usually try to split it like daytime IT, because there's like hours that, matter. because my clients mostly have business hours.
Right.
At night, when it doesn't really matter when I do things, I usually just in bed or, whatever. I do a couple hours of work and get that out. Sometimes I'm up till 5 in the morning. But
I was just gonna say, man. So what time do you normally like try to quote unquote go to bed?
My energy peaks as soon as it turns dark out. I'm like, oh, finally, and I peak. So,
man, you're already a vampire. That's what they call us, vampires. You're already
absolutely.
a vampire.
I was born once since I was a kid. That was why I hated school. Like, you want to wake up at 6 in the morning for what? No thanks.
Oh, that's funny. That is funny. Well, Jeff, what you got? It looks like you're not blinking anymore.
No, man. I mean, I've been able to hear the whole time, and it's been a good one to just listen to because, again, someone I grew up with.
Yeah.
And just hearing your journey, bro, and it's very inspiring to do and become more.
Yeah, no,
I'm
very happy to see that you're doing good too, man. That's huge. Like it's, we like you said, we don't really see that much with
Right, bro. Thank you for pouring into us, for real. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So as we start to clear up,
to talk about
what's that?
About the mental health awareness month, that was something I struggled with detrimentally most of my life. Detrimentally. I had a point where I was agoraphobic. Like I couldn't even leave the house. I had panic attacks when I left the house.
Wow.
Yeah, man, it was bad. So I've always struggled with anxiety, panic, depression, things like that. And I mean, still to this day, they sometimes inhibit me. I've learned to really take most control, but there's at times where I'm inhibited by them still. So I think, just to wrap back to what you're talking about in the beginning, definitely. That's also along with the weaknesses. That's a weakness that you have to go through, but it can also be a strength if you get out of it because you've lived in a different way that other people have never even had to overcome. So yeah, people, if you're watching this and stuff, and you have definitely go talk to someone, go out there and figure out, just be determined to fix it. However, what fixing it means to you, and be honest.
100%. And I'll tell you, man, that's one of the things that being in the restaurant industry, to kind of close us out, talking about mental health awareness, I never thought that I would become a counselor. I mean, and I say that tongue in cheek, but in all honesty, man, I've had employees sit at the bar with me, not drinking, but sit at the bar with me just because they didn't have anyone else to talk to.
Yep.
I've had employees call me at 4:00 in the morning, just breaking down because they didn't have anyone else they could talk to. Yeah. And I don't say that to pat myself on the back. I say that to say, it's a real issue. And, there are so many people that struggle in all these different fields, and even somebody like me. So I kind of joke about being, an extroverted introvert. But to be honest with you, man, I hate people. I mean, I can't. And that was one thing I struggled with growing up. You'd never know it now because I learned how to manage that anxiety of being in a room with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But, I mean, even when we do our comedy events, I have a very good friend that was doing the comedy shows with us. And I told him, I said, hey, listen, here's the thing. I'm going to walk the room and then I've got to go sit in the office. And I'll never forget him coming into the office one time during one of our shows. And he was like, hey, man, are you okay? And I said, you know what? I said, I just need to recharge. I just need to sit here away from everybody and all the noise and, people wanting to shake your hand and pat you on the back and all this stuff. I just need to be here in my own space for a minute. Let me just kind of and then I'm good. Then I'll come back out and I'll walk around again and then I'll disappear again.
That makes sense. I mean, I get that. It's you have your tolerance on what you can put up with, but you learn to live with it. You learn what
100%, man.
And I think that's the most important thing with mental health awareness is learning to live with it, but also learning to strengthen it, not just accept it and let it take over you. You have to learn to overcome it and be strong against it. And, it's tough. It's hard. That's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. The businesses and everything. The hardest thing is coming over mental health.
And I'm going to say the other thing too, is not being afraid to seek help, find, a counselor, a therapist, somebody that can give you an outlet to communicate with, to share those feelings with.
You might not find the right person at first. You might not find the right medicine at first. You might not find the right anything at first. Keep trying. A lot of people will
100%
with a therapist and then they're like, that didn't work. And I've been there. So it's continued. It's exhausting. but you have to do it and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There really is. At times, but there absolutely is. You just got to make sure you're heading towards it.
You know what? I mean, to hear you say that and to hear you speak this way, I have to tell you again, and here's a great example of, one of the reasons why I'm a big believer in mental health awareness and seeking and finding help. I would have never guessed any of that about you. Yeah. Because you and I have, we've spoken face to face, and I mean, dude, you're charismatic, you're personable. I would have never in a million years, if you'd have said, hey man, a year ago, I wouldn't even leave the house. I'd have been like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Are you serious? There's no way that's you. You know what I mean? But exactly. There again, I mean. And
that's somebody to think about too, even if you're not struggling with mental health, think about the others around you that, are, because it's sometimes it's not easy to tell, right? It's very much people are kind of keeping it at bay and hiding it, and don't underestimate people's problems, I guess, too. If they come to you and they're like, I have mental health problems. I've had it in the past where I complain of my anxiety issues, and some people are like, you don't have anxiety, you're fine.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. But there's more to it than meets the eye, and I think that's critical.
Right.
It's not a physical ailment that you can just see. And it's
well, you know what, Zach, I got to tell you, man, I'm impressed by you. I mean, seeing that, again, in your bio, started your first business at 18, had no idea you came from the humble beginnings that you did. Yeah. Seeing your growth and everything that you've done to this point. I mean, maybe it's in the water in Monroe, but I see so many young, talented entrepreneurs. Jeff is one of them that really just hardworking. I call them blue collar entrepreneurs. That's what I am, a blue collar entrepreneur. Roll my sleeves up and get it done. But man, I am so excited. I want to do this again. And I tell you, Jeff, we keep talking about going on location. We need to go up to his restaurant.
Yeah.
Let's go, man.
Let's guest rooms. Yeah, you guys can crash here for sure.
Let's do a location. We've got to go to Cleveland, because we met a young entrepreneur out there in Cleveland. We got to go talk to Hooter. And then we need to come up and take a trip to St. Ignace, man.
Dude, let's come in the on season. We'll go to the island and have fun too. It's a great time.
Let's do it. All right, Jeff. What do you got for us, Jeff?
Hey, bro. Again, thank you. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with you. And building a relationship with you, brother. Seriously.
You too, man. You too.
So
catch up with you again.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Absolutely. And Tino, I do want to say thank you for being being the old guy to give us someone to look to, and thank you for all the counseling, bro.
Yeah, no,
No, hey man,
people, that's good.
Yeah, no, we have lots of great conversations, you and I, and it's a great friendship for sure, man. It's definitely been a great friendship. But hey, listen, Zach, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I want to thank you so much. I can't wait to do this again, and I'm serious. I want to do it again because you've got all these things opening. I can't wait. Let's maybe a year from now, man, we sit down again, and I want to see where you're at a year from now. Because man, you're exploding. You're exploding, and it's exciting to see. And man, I wish you all the luck. We're going to be thinking about you and giving you all the successful. And if you need anything, you give us a shout.
Awesome, man. You guys the same.
Hey, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Man, that's our show for today. Thank you, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
Peace.
Boss Talks, keep it uncensored, it's all hard. You could be for more walks. Come tune in to Boss Talks. Got that all sport, optimal prime.